Entirely. I'll give you one more. This one's even more fun. I studied this with Shaykh Abdullah Adhami, who's a great muhaddith, mashallah, may Allah protect him. He's a Syrian scholar. I was studying this hadith with him, in which Umayma radiallahu ta'ala anha, a woman came to the Prophet ﷺ, and she asked if she could pray in the masjid. And he said, no, you should pray in the innermost part of your home. So don't even pray in the living room, don't even pray in the bedroom, pray in the closet of the bedroom. Now some people use this hadith and quote this hadith and say women should not come to the masjid. Because the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, women should pray where? In the innermost part of their home. Okay, let's take a step back a little bit. It's easy to quote the hadith. When a woman is about to go into, hey, don't you know the hadith? It's sahih. I got the hadith right here. If you want, I can slap you with it. Please go back home. Now listen, here's some history. Umayma radiallahu ta'ala anha was married. And this woman was married to a husband, a sahabi, who was obsessed with her. He was obsessed with her. Actually, you have to learn the other text. This woman used to pray at home, and he used to poke her while she was praying. So she came to the Prophet ﷺ and she said, my husband pokes me when I'm praying. So the Prophet called him. He called him. And he said, why do you poke her when you pray? And he said, well, this is a beautiful answer. He says, she stole my surahs. You know what happened? He used to make salah, and she used to pray next to him in jama'ah. He recited the Quran. She heard it one time, hafizat al-surah. She memorized the surah. And now she's praying on her own. He goes, hey, that was my surah, hey. But let's analyze this psychologically a little bit. He was so obsessed with this woman, even when she was paying attention to God on her own, he got jealous. And he used to poke her. So she said, I should come to the masjid. I should come to the masjid and pray. Now why does she want to come to the masjid and pray? Because she wants to get away from Pokemon. So she wants to come to the masjid and pray. Now the husband got very upset. No, I don't want her to come to the masjid. If he's so jealous of her that he gets jealous even when she talks to God, what do you think is going to happen if she goes to the masjid for half an hour? Where is she? She left me? She coming back? She divorced me? She finally different? Who's going to go crazy? So the Prophet ﷺ told this woman, listen, go in the innermost part of your house and pray there. Why the innermost part of your house? So he can't find you when you're praying. And if you come to the masjid and pray, it might destroy your marriage. So you need to fix your marriage situation first. So this is the advice I'm giving you. Now another group of women, also Sahih Hadith, another group of women come to the Prophet ﷺ and they say, Ya Rasulullah, we come to the masjid for Fajr. And when we come to the masjid for Fajr in Medina, when we come to the masjid for Fajr, we have to walk through sewage. There's a place where there's, you know what sewage is, yes? We have to walk through filth. So our clothes get dirty. So how can we pray when our clothes are dirty? So now what do you expect the Prophet to say? Stay home and pray. The Prophet told them, alayhi salatu wasalam, don't worry, if your clothes get dirty, the dirt from the rest of the way will clean it up. You still come and pray at the masjid. These are women leaving at 3 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. in the morning walking to the masjid. And they're not driving, they're walking. And it's a long walk. And the Prophet said, you still come and pray in the masjid. Is it true that we read a hadith and we jump to conclusions? We think we know what it means immediately? Does it require more study? Does it require more analysis? So my advice to you is, if ulama are passing a judgment, if scholars are saying, this people are wrong, those people are wrong, those people are wrong, maybe they have a right to do it because they are scholars. You don't have a right to copy them and judge people. Let them do it, you don't become scholars. You don't become judges. كُونُوا دُعَاةً لَا قُضَاةً. Be da'is, be callers to Allah, don't be judges. Especially the young people here. If you don't have a sanad al-hadith, if you're not a muhaddith, if you don't have those kinds of ijazat, if you have no qualifications in these texts, then you should not be talking. One time I was sitting in a restaurant, and there were two brothers together. One brother had a long beard, one brother didn't have a beard.
أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ, what your right hands possess. And of course this is a big bone to pick among Western academics. How come Islam allowed for women slaves and all of this stuff? The first response that you need to understand is that, if you just change the terminology just a tad bit, just a little bit. I'll take 5 more minutes and I'm done, inshallah. If you change terminology just a little bit, historically speaking, when were women taken as captives in situations of war? I'm not talking about the Islamic civilization alone. Historically speaking, any civilization, when are women taken as prisoner? Either under prostitution or under war, right? They're taken as captives, POWs. Now, either of those scenarios, how pleasant are they for women? Those two situations in which women are under another's rule, another's, authority. Both of those situations are horrendous, even today. If women are captured in a village by a military, you know what happens. In our times, by the most civilized army, right? By the most humanistic army. The army that takes 2 years of ethical training and then goes and takes over a village, what happens to those women too, right? Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, and our deen isn't in idealism. Our deen is in practical realities. The practical reality is this situation will occur. There will be women that will be in that situation. So what do you do with them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them under the authority of the believers. And the other interesting thing in this is that, POWs, you can do whatever you want, unthinkable things with them, and nobody can question you. But this is not the case with malakat aymanukum, what your right hands possess. They have rights. Their children have a shared inheritance. Practically they enjoy everything a wife enjoys. The only difference is the term nikah. And why not the term nikah? It's a very simple thing. The nikah is a transfer of responsibility. It's a contract which transfers responsibility from who to who. It transfers responsibility from the previous wali to the new wali. The previous wali was who? The father, if there's a brother or a grandfather, somebody, the man of the house, right? And now who's the new wali? The husband. It's a transfer of responsibility. In situations where the woman was already inside your house. Before Islam, even the Sahaba owned some women. They're already there. If you do nikah technically means transfer of responsibility. So who are they transferring responsibility from? Themselves? It doesn't make sense. So what do you have to have? The responsibility itself. The transfer is not so important as the responsibilities themselves. So what does Quran and Sunnah do? It reveals the responsibilities in those situations. In case there's a transfer, nikah. In case there's no transfer, the responsibilities apply. You follow? So this is the second thing. So it's semantics. And if you just look at this one word, responsibility, and you say, you know what, you have a problem with the word concubines? Let's talk about the word responsibility. Let's talk about Western society, where every 2.5 to 3 minutes a rape is taking place, and teenage girls in public schools are getting pregnant, and they don't know who did it. And this hideous society is coming to life, and nobody's taking the one word. Nobody's taking responsibility. Nobody's taking responsibility. They don't even know where to go. And there's this chaotic situation in the society. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He reveals something that takes care of the chaotic situation in society. And the final comment about this, probably the most important one. Between ayahs number 32 and 33 of Surah An-Nur, which is the next surah. This is Al-Mu'minun, the next surah is Surah An-Nur. 32 and 33, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is homework for you. Read tafsir of 32 and 33 of Surah An-Nur. In those ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened the door for women that were owned at the time, that they can work their way to getting married to somebody and earn their freedom. And once that happened, the only women that were left in the possession of right hands of the Muslims were either women that were, in some way handicapped, that couldn't get married for whatever sickness or something else, or they were too young to get married. There was the only two kinds of women left. Every other woman, they worked their way towards freedom. And this is a historical fact within the Sahaba's time. And that door to that, that reform in society was open by just 2 ayat of Quran, 32 and 33 of Surah An-Nur. Right? So this is a historical phenomenon that we have to understand. People are making criticism about our book, and they seem like heavy criticisms only for one reason. We don't know our book. That's the only reason it feels like, oh my God, how do you respond to that? When they tell us, kill them wherever you find them, the ayah they quote from Surah At-Tawbah or Surah Al-Baqarah and other places, right? قَاتِلُوهُمْ وَقْتُلُوهُمْ, kill them and fight them and kill them and fight them. How do we respond to that? And since we haven't studied our book, we don't know how to respond. But the reality of the matter is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this book to people who have decent fitrah, right? which means everything that is in Quran and everything that is in the Sunnah of the Messenger ﷺ appeals to decent human beings. It's just a matter of explaining it properly. Not compromising anything, it just has to be explained properly. Like the issue of concubines, put it in perspective to historically POW women, and it sounds like the most humane solution. Go to a woman that's imprisoned, a woman that's been imprisoned in a camp in China, or somewhere in Europe, right? Or in Russia or somewhere, and you give her the option, this is what Quran is offering you, and you can stay here if you want, because this is the Western solution. What would you take? You ask a professor somewhere sitting in a university on the leather couch discussing these things, he'll say, well, the Western solution is better. And ask a woman that's in that state, she'll say, I'll take the Islamic solution, please. Right? Because it's grounded in reality, not in theory. That's what it is. So we have to have confidence in our deen. You know, these things that are mentioned, they're not controversial, they're not things to be ashamed of, they're things that will actually poke a bigger criticism on society. Why aren't you looking at this solution? Do we have to tell you this? Or you're telling us to do your way, that's obviously not working, right? So, إِلَّا عَلَىٰ أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ. Then they are not to be blamed. فَمَنِ ابْتَغَى وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ. Then whoever pursues a way other than that, even if Allah made the halal means open, somebody pursues another way, then they are the ones that have transgressed. They are the ones that have transgressed. Inshallah ta'ala, we're just going to discuss that part of it. The pursuit of ways other than marriage. And how the Muslim community has made the halal way of marriage so profoundly difficult for its youth that the haram way is so much easier an option.
You know what I said the third thing was? Where do they get respect from? From garnering attention, from arrogance, from ego, these things. If you raise your children right, you know what they will learn? Respect comes from nowhere, except from the words, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. When you accept this religion of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And only Allah owns nobility and dignity and honor and authority, and so do His messengers, and it belongs to Him and to the believers. Believers have this dignity and nobility that nobody else has. If you raise your children right, you know what's going to happen by the time they get to high school? Even if you send them to public high school, they will see all kinds of film, and they will look at it and not say, I wish I could be like that. They'll look at it and say, I feel so sorry for these pathetic people. They have no idea what's ahead of them. They have no purpose in their life. Allah gave me such clarity about what my life is about. I already have direction in my life. And these people are so pointless. They're losers now, they'll be even bigger losers 10 years from now, and 200 years from now when they're in their graves, they'll be amazing losers. I feel bad for them. I feel sorry for them. You'll start looking down at corruption instead of being jealous of it. You'll start feeling bad for people who are victims of it instead of wanting to be like them or being tempted by them. That's the kind of kids we want to raise. That see their Islam as something that makes them superior to everything else. They're not arrogant, but they understand what Allah has given them is better. وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ. What Allah has is better. What Allah, if they could see the world like that, man, I tell you, the world would be at their feet. People will come to them and say, man, what is it? What makes you think, bro? I don't get you. You're not like everybody else. This has actually happened to me before. And it happened to a lot of young people before too. You know, you're in an elevator, you keep your eyes low, the woman comes to me, you didn't look at me once. Why did you do that? I was like, I don't need to. I'm married. And I fear God. What religion are you? I was like, I'm of the religion that respects women. And I didn't tell her. So she had to ask me like, what religion? Islam. Good. When we stand up for our religion, I tell you, people around us will notice. People around us will notice.